Welcome to episode 24 of the Metamagix Monster Manual and the finale episode of the Dead by Daylight chapter until they release some new content. In this episode, I want to teach you guys how I think you should be running the Oni, my favorite killer in DnD 5e. Now, this is going to be probably the most complex stat block that I have designed in the Dead by Daylight chapter, so without any further delay, let's just jump right into it. As a reminder, there is a link to the stat block in the description of this video. It'll take you to my Twitter or my Discord where you can find a picture to download for free. So this is the Oni, and to begin, the Oni is classified as a large humanoid with the chaotic evil tag, same as all of the other killers. He has an armor class of 14, 200 hit points, and a movement speed of 35 feet. For the stat array, he has a massive 20 strength, 18 constitution, and the other stats are nominal around 10 through 12. However, he does have a dexterity score of 8. For the damage immunities, he is immune to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage from non-magical attacks, but could be turned down to just a resistance if your party is low on magic. He has a passive perception of 12, speaks 0 languages, and is a challenge rating of 10. So now we're going to jump into some gameplay and talk about all of his mechanics, perks, and abilities. So to begin, let's talk about the Oni's main mechanic, Yamaoka's Wrath. The Oni's successful Yamaoka's Blade attacks and Blood Echo effect, will be talked about later, generate blood orbs. The Oni automatically collects blood orbs by successfully landing attacks with Yamaoka's Blade by walking over them or by using a bonus action to vacuum all orbs in a 15-foot radius. Once the Oni collects 10 blood orbs, he enters his Blood Fury. While in Blood Fury, the Oni gains a multi-attack and access to new abilities and actions. We will go over those in a second. First ability is Demon Dash, which requires Blood Fury. As a bonus action, the Oni can increase his movement speed to 80 feet, and his melee weapon attacks deal an additional damage die until the end of his turn. Moving on to his perks, first we have Zanshin Tactics. The Oni has advantage on all strength checks and saving throws and may use his strength modifier for any dexterity checks or saving throws. So he's going to use the +5 bonus to strength rather than the -1 to dex. And you may be asking, why not just make his dex 20? Because his AC would be massive. That's the answer. Next up, we have Blood Echo. When the Oni reduces a creature to 0 hit points, all other injured creatures begin to bleed and take 1d4 damage at the start of each of their turns and leave 1 blood orb. This bleed effect lasts for 1 minute or until a creature uses an action to mend the wound. So any creature goes down, all injured creatures start to bleed, leaving a trail for the Oni to follow as well. Finally, we have Nemesis. Any creature who stuns or blinds the Oni becomes the Oni's obsession for 1 minute, recalling back to the obsession mechanic. During this time, the creature is blinded. There can only be 1 obsession at a time. So at the start of the encounter, instead of there being an obsession, there is no obsession. But the second any creature decides to try to blind or stun the Oni, they will in turn become blinded as well, and this can pass on to each obsession as it follows, since there can only be 1 at a time. Moving on to his actions, first we have Yamaoka's Blade, his main basic attack. Melee weapon attack, +9 to hit, reach 5 feet, deals 1d8 +5 slashing damage, and generates 1 blood orb that he automatically collects. And for his other actions, first we have multi-attack, which requires Blood Fury to be active, where the Oni makes 2 Kanabo attacks. His Kanabo being the giant spiked club that he pulls out when he starts to rage out. The Kanabo is a melee weapon attack that requires Blood Fury to be active, has +9 to hit, reach 5 feet, and deals 2d10 +5 bludgeoning damage. It's also a multi-attack, so this can seriously deal immense damage to any single target if the Oni is able to get the Blood Fury active. Now, it's important to also remember that if the Oni is in Blood Fury and he uses his Demon Dash, meaning he's not already within range of somebody, his damage die will increase to 3d10 +5 on the Kanabo for each attack, meaning he can 1 hit or 1 turn down some squishier targets. So with that in mind, there is some debate on how I think you could use this stat block. 10 orbs I felt like was enough of a barrier before the Oni became ultra powerful, but if he's collecting them too fast, if the characters are already injured before the encounter or during the encounter from some other targets you might throw at them, 10 orbs might be too little. I originally put it at 5, but that I think is too little, so 10 is probably the sweet spot for blood orbs before he enters Blood Fury, which lasts for 1 minute, by the way. I don't know if I mentioned that earlier. So how would you run this killer? To start, you would probably want to land attacks on as many different characters as possible in order to get them to the injured status. Then you would probably hard focus on a squishier target to down them. Every character starts to bleed. You can then vacuum all of the blood orbs to enter your blood fury as possible and start dealing out massive amounts of damage with your Kanabo. But guys, that is how I think you should run the Oni from Dead by Daylight in D&D 5e. I know this was a pretty complicated stat block in terms of abilities and mechanics involved, but trust me guys, once you figure out how to run it, once you put it in, the pieces will all fit together. It'll make so much sense. But that is going to conclude the Dead by Daylight chapter of the Metamagix Monster Manual. This took a really long time to put all together, but I'm really glad we were able to get to the end of it here. The next videos that are going to come out will probably be some DM's Guild reviews and then Tasha's Cauldron of Everything before we move on to the next game, the next chapter of the Metamagix Monster Manual. So I hope you guys enjoyed this chapter. If you did, be sure to leave this video and all of the other videos in this chapter a like, and subscribe if you guys haven't. And until next time, have fun, stay safe, and as always, happy gaming.